Hello again. So this is going to be a different type of video. I have actually been asked to talk about this subject by someone who follows me, and I follow their content as well, and they are kind of learning a lot about themselves and going through a lot of changes and building their own confidence in life and everything. And I got asked to do this video on this topic because it is something that has recently been kind of worrying this person, and it's something I've been through myself, so I felt like I could talk about it. So it is something that a lot of people struggle with as well, from time to time. And so basically this is about like things that happen in our lives that kind of give us quite a strong response, right? So if we have someone who say like a situation happens in your life with like a certain person or group of people, or it doesn't even have to be like people, it can be like a circumstance in life, like some kind of experience in your life that happened, and then it kind of brings up a very strong response, like a kind of trauma response, or like kind of like a strong feeling of anxiety or fear or worry, or something is just really strong, okay? Like in your body, you might have like panic attacks, you might have anxiety, you might be reminded of, and this is the thing, it will probably be because it reminds you of something that has happened in your life before, whether that's subconscious or conscious, right? You might be aware of it, you might not, but it just elicits this massive feeling within you. It's, we could call it triggers, I guess. Not a lot of people like that word, but I try to avoid that word, but it is, it triggers a trauma response. So I'm going to use an example in my own life, just to kind of clearly explain why this may happen, okay? So I was at work years ago, and I had been, for many years, I had never had any issues with anyone at work. I'd always got on with everyone in the team, but there was a certain thing that happened one day where some colleagues of mine kind of turned against me, and it was like, whoa. and I realized that I had been acting differently anyway. I'd been going through a bit of a change within myself, so I suppose I was kind of all over the place anyway, and I maybe triggered them and they then triggered me, and there seemed to be this like conflict going on, right? Now, I hated this, absolutely hate conflict, right? Especially in the workplace when you have to work with these people. And it really upset me. It really brought up loads of anxiety within me. I just felt so uneasy, so uncomfortable, was so worried, like fear of, had a fear of conflict and everything coming up, and it was awful. Anyway, ended up kind of really, I don't know, it went on for a few weeks, maybe even months, and I had to kind of just sit with the feeling, right? I had to sit with the feeling of what it was bringing up for me, and I fell into it, and it was a feeling that was very familiar, right? A feeling that I had experienced in my life before, and I had to like really feel into it and think, where did I feel this before? Right, where have I felt this feeling for? Where is this experience? Like, it might even be that the experience is very similar to something you experienced before, okay? The situation is very familiar, and it reminded me of two times in my life. So it reminded me of bullying in school. It reminded me of like falling out with close friends and bullying and people turning against me and me not expecting it, and just being full of like fear and anxiety and fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, from fear of loss of friendships and people close to me, right? Brought up all of that. And it reminded me of bullying at school. It also reminded me of times in my life where people have given me silent treatment. So it doesn't even have to be one time. It can be one time, but it can also be other times where you've continuously had these same feelings. So these experiences, I feel, are there to bring your attention to an area in your life where you may not have acknowledged that, you may not have validated that experience, you may not have given yourself the empathy, the compassion and the forgiveness that you need to give yourself. So it could be like a young version of you. So for me, for instance, it was around the age of like 13, 14, right? And that part of me was still wounded because at the time I hadn't given myself the compassion, the empathy, all of that at the time. I hadn't validated my own feelings at the time about that. So that stays in your body, and then these experiences and situations can happen later in life, or at some point in your life, to show you that you need to go back and you need to heal that. Okay, you need to acknowledge that. You need to give yourself compassion, empathy, kindness, forgiveness, right? So I kind of did that process on my own. Like I'd been working through that sort of stuff anyway, because I was learning how to be a counsellor and do all that. So it was the right time to be able to do that. Now I think these things happen to you. They will come back up when it's time, right? When it's the right time to do that work, because you're able to now. You can manage it, right? You can manage your emotions. I think this person who has asked for this is in a place now where they're able to kind of evaluate what's going on for them. They're doing the work now. They're looking to improve themselves. So, when you say to the universe, I'm willing to improve on myself, unfortunately, you might experience more things in your life that are going to trigger you, but they will be there to show you, okay, you want to do this, you're going to have to go back and you're going to have to acknowledge what hasn't been acknowledged, to do the healing work on the parts of you that are still wounded from many years ago, right? So if these things happen, so what I did is I kind of, sat with the feeling, I acknowledged where it came from, and I gave myself the compassion and empathy. I imagined talking to that wounded 13, 14-year-old, and I was like, oh, of course I feel this way. Like, it's no wonder I feel this way, because, back then that was awful. That was awful what you experienced. Those people were so horrible to you, and that sounds weird, if you're not used to doing this work and like talking to a younger version of you, it's going to feel odd, but it's all you need. It's like, even if you don't feel right, going back and talking to the younger version of you, you can just talk to yourself now. Well, of course you feel this way. You've experienced this in the past and you're experiencing it again. Ooh. That was quite loud. You're experiencing it. What you're experiencing now is, triggering that you've experienced before, and that was a horrible situation, and you're feeling it again, right? So just give yourself empathy, compassion, understanding, acknowledgement, right? That's like the first part. And then say, for instance, you had been triggered by this experience in the now, right? And say, for instance, you had responded in a negative way and you had reacted quickly because you were triggered. So say, for instance, it brings up a lot of anger in you, right? And you acted from an angry place and you called them a name, or you lashed out, right? That's something you probably wouldn't have wanted to do, and it probably made the situation worse. And so you might be then beating yourself up about that, right? You might be saying, oh, why did I act that way? I'm such an idiot, blah, blah, blah. I make things worse. Start being hard and cruel to yourself. So that's when it's time for forgiveness, right? So the next part of the healing is forgiveness for yourself, right? It's never forgiveness for the other person first. And I will put this in there. I don't believe you have to forgive someone else first. I think you have to forgive yourself first for anything you might be being cruel to yourself for, right? So say, for instance, you had lashed out, right? It's obviously giving yourself empathy, compassion. Of course you felt that way. Of course you've acted in that way, and forgive yourself because you were just hurt. You were acting from a wounded place, right? So start with that. I might go on to part 2 actually, because I know I've only got 10 minutes on here, so I am going to do that now. Okay, so please follow on for part 2. All right. I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so this is part 2 of my I don't even know what I'm going to call this video. Healing from past trauma, or healing from triggered places, or whatever, I don't know. Whatever you see the title as. But if you haven't watched part 1, please watch part 1, because it is very crucial. You won't know what the hell this video is about if not. Okay, so I finished part 1 talking about forgiveness for yourself. Okay, so I said, you know, if you had reacted from a negative place, if you lashed out, or, you know, responded in a negative way, to give yourself empathy and compassion, and forgive yourself because of that, right? Another example would be if you didn't say anything, right? If you stayed quiet and then you beat yourself up because you stayed quiet and you didn't do anything about it, right? Give yourself compassion and empathy for that. Of course you stayed quiet because you were scared of what might happen. You were scared of conflict. You hate conflict. You know, it's not nice, blah, 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 right? So it's all empathy, it's all compassion, and forgive yourself, okay? Now, there is another layer, right? There is a deeper layer, and it can transform things if you are able to do this. Now, not everyone can do this, and not everyone believes they should do this. But the next level of healing is forgiveness for the other person, or forgiveness for the situation or the experience, right? In this situation of mine, I was able to do that, and it actually shifted the whole relationship. So I've seen it happen. I've seen the benefits of this, so I know how important it is. But I also have experiences in my life where I struggle to forgive people, and that's not always needed, right? Sometimes what's needed is to honour yourself. And that's why I always say self-forgiveness is the most important thing first, because if you don't then decide to forgive the other person, it doesn't matter, because you've forgiven yourself, you've healed yourself, right? That is the most important thing. But if you want to, you know, try and change the situation, try and change the whole experience and, you know, a relationship or something, it might be worth trying the next part. So in the same way that you forgave yourself, imagine the other person, right? We're going to use another person because it's the easiest way to explain it. Imagine the other person has a young wounded part in them as well, and that they were triggered in the same way as you were, right? They have parts of them that have been wounded, you know, had traumatic experiences that have caused them to react or treat you in a bad way or do something in their life. Imagine that, okay? You don't know 100%. You never know what someone's been through unless they tell you, right? And this isn't, like, I always want to say about, you know, with forgiveness, it's not about letting them off the hook and saying, you know, what they did is fine. It's not about that. But what it is about is just kind of being open to the fact that they're not actually being themselves. They, you know, on some level, they didn't know what they were doing. On some level, they didn't intend to hurt you, right? They're just reacting and responding same as you might have done from an angry place. Do you know what I mean? So you have to kind of be open to that, right? The fact that they might be acting as their traumatized, wounded part, right? Then just give that part, like imagined part, right? You don't even have to speak to them. This is all like in your head, right? Give that part of them, or send them, right, some empathy, compassion and forgiveness, right? It is difficult. It is not always easy, right? But if you can do it, it honestly feels amazing. It feels so freeing. And then just, you know, you will start to feel a difference, and you'll be able to move on, and you'll be able to just, it will hopefully have a better relationship with them. But if not, you'll just feel better in yourself anyway, because you would have just freed yourself from it. Okay, so that's kind of what I did in that situation, and this is, you know, it's going to be unique for everyone. That's just an example I gave. Obviously not everyone's going to have the same example, but it's just to explain triggers, and, you know, when experiences happen in our lives that bring up some kind of trauma response in our bodies and in our minds, and how we can cope with them. And also, obviously, we don't always want to do this on our own. We can't always do this on our own. So please do reach out to trusted friends, trusted family members, or, you know, even better, a counsellor, someone who doesn't really know you really well, who can kind of have an unbiased you know, opinion, give unbiased support, and isn't so emotionally, you know, involved. So a counsellor, a coach, a healer, anyone, you know, that is professional and can do their work, can I can't get my words out, can yeah, give you the professional support that you need, right? So do reach out to those people as well to help with this sort of thing. Yeah, so I hope that helped, and yeah, do feel free to contact me directly or comment, you know, if this helped or supported you in any way. And if you want more of these videos, please do let me know if there's anything you want me to talk about in particular. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.